Hello, friends. I'm Maggie Ostara. I'm a sovereignty mentor and a human design expert. And I love to share with you a human design perspective on what's happening astrologically. And we have so much going on astrologically. Today, we're going to talk about the Aries new moon that is coming up on the 17th and some of the things that are surrounding it. And it's a super potent new moon. We have many planets in Aries right now. So this isn't just your regular new moon. This is an opportunity for you to step into your sovereignty, to take command of your life at a whole nother level, to really claim your I am statement, because Aries is an I am energy, to clear your identity from things that you accumulated and you agreed to and you thought were you, but now you may be realizing that's not really me, or it's not the me I want to be as I move forward into the future. So there's a lot of potential here. We're going to go ahead and dive in. So the context for this new moon is that there is a stellium in Aries, which is an astrological term meaning a gathering of three or more heavenly bodies next to each other, either in a sign or in a house. In this case, we have as many as 9 and even 10, depending on if you count some of the other bodies in Aries. And that is highly unusual. There are some people who are saying this hasn't happened in thousands of years, if they've ever seen it before. So in astrology, rare means potent, even more impotent. So we've got a very potent gathering, really, of heavenly bodies in this fire sign, cardinal initiatory fire sign, right? Aries is the beginning of the astrological wheel, the beginning of the astrological year. It's considered a highly initiatory energy, right? If you think about it, it's like Aries comes on in the northern hemisphere at the spring equinox, which is when we're first starting to see bulbs coming out and trees starting to flower. And so there's this kind of energy that Aries has. And so it's a vibrant and enlivening time, full of life force and the ability to forge in new directions. And Aries is also ruled by Mars, and Mars has been known as the god of war, and Mars can be aggressive, absolutely. Mars was really co-opted by the Romans to be the god of war. I did a whole video about Mars and Aries, but really about the Mars energy. So I'll make sure to put that down in the description. I also did a video last week, which is about Mars entering Aries, so that we get like Aries Mars, like boom, boom, double energy, because Mars rules Aries. And so we are seeing on the world stage a lot of aggression happening. We're seeing a lot of kind of Mars energy of might makes right. And this is what we're seeing on the surface. And yes, there are a lot of people who are suffering as a result of this. So I'm not at all diminishing that. But I also want to say that you and I and every one of us has the ability to inhabit and express our Mars energy in a different way. And the more of us that do that, we help to, in effect, rehabilitate Mars from the way that that archetype was co-opted by the Romans and really made into a particular, pretty kind of narrow view of what Mars could be. And in human design, we consider Mars in his really awakened expression to be the spiritual warrior, rather than the god of war, which is, in my view, a really kind of adolescent attitude, which is, I'm just going to go and take what I want. It's something that we really, as human beings, are designed to mature out of, but unfortunately has become a kind of norm under patriarchy. And so this is what we are really looking at in ourselves and asking the question, how do we evolve out of that? How do we mature ourselves into the fullness of our true potential? And the astrology is totally pointing to this. Human design with the prophecy of 2027. I will do a video about that soon. Is also pointing to the development of a new human, the development of a change in our own energy field and in the human design system, in fact. And so there are so many different forces. We've had prophecies that are thousands of years old that are pointing to this time. So it's a very, very potent time. And I'm sure that you're experiencing the intensity of it in some ways in your life for sure. And the invitation is to really grab a hold of this energy and to utilize it for good, right? Utilize it for creating a world that works for everyone, creating a world where we have fresh water, we have clean air, we have nourishing food, where the children can play outside and not be in danger. Right? Just so many of the things that we long for. And now is the time. Now is really the time to make the changes that you know you have been wanting to make. All of the energy is here to support you. And the question I would just ask is, what is it going to take? Right? What is it going to take for you to move forward in the direction that your heart is calling you, rather than the one that you have agreed to through the course of your life? This is really a reckoning point. And the good news is that we have so much energetic support for it. If you keep looking at what's going on in the media and social media, you may not see that, because that energy, those news stories that you get, largely ruled by elites who are trying to stimulate fear. They're trying to keep us disempowered. They're trying to keep us separated from each other so that we don't come together and create this new earth that we're really longing for. I had an epiphany on a walk the other day when I was thinking about all of the different ways that we have been separated from each other by the way that our societies have developed. And I know here in the United States, we had a whole new way of living that was really popularized in the 1950s, which was the nuclear family. Prior to that, we didn't really have so much emphasis on nuclear families. People lived more in extended families, or in situations where there were more people around. We got this idea of the nuclear family. The nuclear family separated families from each other, broke down communities, and made us believe that we were getting a really good deal because we got our own little house with our own little strip of lawn where we killed the dandelions, which are like one of the healthiest plants around. Anyway, I could go down that rabbit hole, but I'm not going to. But just to say, that was the beginning of a different form of separation, where we got this idea that we really didn't need each other. We have, I got my home, I got my partner, I got my kids, I got my own thing, like as if we were these little autonomous units. But the truth is, human beings are not meant to live in separate units like that. We are communal beings by nature. We've been programmed to believe that we're different, right? But that is kind of at the core of us, is that we are relational beings. We're not meant to be really autonomous beings. And in the last video that I talked about Mars entering Aries, I talked about this distinction between sovereignty from, which is where we're pushing against something and saying, which is what, in the United States, the colonists at the time did with the King George, said, we're pushing against that and we're creating the first sovereign state. And then, because individualism is really highlighted in the United States, then we took on this idea that I am an individual, autonomous sovereign, right? And so that has kind of been carried with us. And that is definitely a sovereignty from, because at the core of it is like, stay away, I'm going to do what I want, I'm self-determining. Whereas sovereign of is where we mature out of that adolescent attitude into a fully adult perspective where we realize the one thing that is my 100% responsibility is myself. It's my energy field, my behavior, my speech, my thoughts, my beliefs, my emotions, right? All of that is really my responsibility. And so sovereign of myself, my multi-dimensional self, so I get to know all the parts of me and to bring them all into alignment with your higher self, or the wise one within. I like to call that really light being that is animating your form. And with all this Aries energy, which is sovereign energy, it's really calling us to step into that experience of being sovereign of our own beings and helping to release out of us the programming that made us into these immature, might makes right, or I better befriend the people with power because otherwise I'm going to lose out and it might be dangerous, right? That kind of thing. And of course, women for millennia were taught to do that because the men had the power. And so we had to find a way to manipulate them and talk them into things and convince them to do things, right? And that we're evolving out of that, right? This whole nasty dynamic of power over, right? Of asserting violence and coercion or the threat thereof in order to make other people do what you want them to do. Right. This is the foundation of empire. It's the foundation of patriarchy, which, and I will say it, I say it every time, this is not about men. This is about a system of domination that has become so normal that we don't even think twice about it. And yet there is a resurgence amongst certain people that really want to strengthen that and make it bigger. The good news is that more and more people are saying, no, we don't want to do that. In Hungary, the dictator there was just deposed by vote, which people thought was not possible. This is breaking through. This is Pluto and Aquarius, right? Saying no more of this top-down authority that is controlling people. That has to break apart and fall away so that we can start to have a world and build a world that works for everyone. So while all of these planets are in Aries, you have every bit of energy you need to, yes, be self-determining. You know, that I am sovereign and I am going to be in charge of my own life. That's a great first step. But the next step is, who am I as a sovereign being? Who am I as a sovereign being? What does it even mean, really, to be a sovereign being? What does that mean? And how do we create that? And of course, I wrote a book about that called Feminine Sovereignty, 8 Pillars for Regenerating Ourselves and Our World. Because this is the time where we are stepping into a new version of sovereignty, feminine sovereignty, which is a sovereignty that is aligned with the values of the divine feminine and truly of spirit, the soul qualities of generosity, caring, compassion, creativity, intuition, respect, vision, and of course, love, right? Love, which is the primary frequency of the universe, is this quality of love. We have the opportunity now to be aligning more and more with those soul qualities and to be expressing them out into the world. This is our opportunity, and Aries energy is here to help us to do that. Now, Aries, as I said earlier, sometimes can be kind of aggressive when we're in that shadow expression, which is based in might makes right and power over. Aries can fall into that. The programming around that has been going on for a very long time. But we can do different. And I can say, as somebody who my sun is in Aries, my south node is in Aries, Eris is in Aries, and so is my Mercury. I have a lot of Aries energy in my chart and in my being. And it has been a lifelong study, really, to shift that kind of aggressive power over kind of energy into a more mature way of recognizing that we're all in this together, Sometimes some people are going to take more leadership than others. We can rotate it around, right? Some people will do this, some people will do that. We don't have to have this kind of static hierarchical. It can be far more relational, which is really what human beings are designed to be. It's to be more relational. After all, human design shows us by the ways that our human design, our energy fields interpenetrate each other, show that we actually are dynamically related to each other all the time, right? We're just not necessarily always so aware of it. But we are in an age where we're becoming more and more energetically adept, and we're starting to understand this, and we're learning how to work with it. And so for me, this sovereignty is about learning these different multidimensional aspects of who we are and inviting, really kind of demanding at a certain level, that the personality self surrender to the higher self. Because that is the part that has our best interests and is not mired in our conditioning. And for me, that is what sovereignty is. Because even if we think about the kind of European idea of sovereignty that was created by the royals in about the 14th century, I think, it's this idea that the sovereign is ordained by God to be the sovereign. But now we recognize that we are actually all expressions of the God force, right? Of divine source energy. We are each individual expressions of that because everything is, right? Everything is. And that means you are and I am and we all are. And everything is, including like my microphone, right? These are all expressions of source, of spirit. And so our sovereignty comes from the fact that we are an expression of source. Right? That is what makes us sovereign. And what prevents us from stepping into that and understanding ourselves as truly sovereign beings is all of that conditioning that has made us feel unworthy, that we're not enough, that we're not good enough, that we are deficient in some way, that we don't deserve, right? That we're sinful, all of that stuff, right? And this is what we're clearing right now. We're deeply clearing these trauma imprints that we have from this life and other lives that are holding us tied to the past so that we can move forward into the future. In the human design chart for this new moon, the sun and the moon are in the gate 3. The gate 3 is known as difficulty at the beginning in the I Ching. It's also known as ordering in traditional human design or innovation. It is in the knowing circuit, so it's highly intuitive. It is on the sacral center, so it's responsive, but it is life force energy, so it's got power to it. And it is the place where we bring through all of the different insights and possibilities and epiphanies and breakthroughs, new possibilities that come in through the knowing circuit and then come up through that central channel, through that gate 3. And it is our ability to truly bring through new innovations. We also have Venus in the gate 23, which is right here at the top of the throat. And then we also have Uranus down here in the gate 8, which is about contribution. So the 23 is really about bringing in these powerful insights. And the gate 8 is about how we contribute out into the world. So this is individual circuitry. It's here to be different. It's here to bring change. It's all about innovation already. And the knowing circuit in particular is about bringing through these, leading edge ideas. It doesn't fit in. And, people who have a lot of individual circuitry like me tend to think differently than other people, tend to see things that are going to be coming in the future, but they're real for them now, right? And so this is really beneficial energy for us right now during this new moon, for us to be leaning into what are the innovations that we want to be bringing out into the world. Because as the old order breaks down and falls apart, we need to be innovating new possibilities, bringing in new forms, which of course Saturn is doing, has been conjunct with Neptune, right? So we've had all this energy about bringing new forms in. And the question is what are those new forms going to be? How are we going to innovate with them? And then also, how are we going to contribute them out into the world for the benefit of all? This is a great time to just do some writing in your journaling, or do some collaging, or do some kind of creative activity on the new moon, because you always want to create some kind of an intention, whether that is a verbal intention or something that's coming out of your heart that you create into some kind of art. You can also do it that way. But this is a really great time to be doing that, and to be, leaning into, what is it I want to innovate? What is it I want to bring through? What is it that I want to see in the world that isn't already here, but it would be really great to be here? Or alternately, to be looking at who else is innovating. What are they doing? How can I get involved with that? Can I support these new earth innovations that are actually happening all over the world? But let's take a look at all of the different planets that are in Aries. I circled them all here for you, right? We've got the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, and Neptune. So all the main planets that are in Aries. But in addition to that, we also have Eris and Kiron and Salacia, who are all different asteroids or dwarf planets. So here we've got 9 orbiting bodies that are in Aries right now. That's what makes the stellium, right? They're all next to each other here. And you'll see Neptune is still in the gate 25. Saturn has moved on, but Neptune has been there for over a year. It's going to be there for another year. Just going to be moving through that gate 25. And then we also have Mercury, who's joined Neptune there for a short period of time, because Mercury moves pretty fast. And in fact, Mercury is going to just keep moving on through Aries, and it's going to activate all of these different planets are in Aries, because Mercury moves fast, right? So that's going to be an interesting thing for us to take a look at as the month unfolds. But you'll see here, so we've got 2 different planets that are in the gate 25, again, highlighting our need to really connect to spirit. Which I was just saying about sovereignty, right? Is that we are sovereign beings because we are energy beings, we are light beings, we are divine source energy expressing through a human form. And we are really being invited to realize that, and to learn how to be that, and to own it, and to step into it. And Mercury's here saying, what are the powerful thoughts that you have about that? What are the powerful aspects of your mind and the ways that you can communicate that are about that, right? So there's really potent that these 2 are right next to each other. But then we also have Mars and Saturn in the gate 17. So the gate 17 is a little bit of a gnarly gate. The 3 can also be challenging just because it's difficulty at the beginning, because innovation can be difficult at the beginning because it's innovation. That makes sense to me. But the 17 in traditional human design is known as opinions. And in quantum human design, it's been renamed anticipation. So it is on the ajna center. It's in the logic circuit. So it can be very heady, right? Lots of thoughts, really just kind of busy in the head. I have this defined in my chart, actually, so I'm pretty aware of what that energy is like. And you want to watch out for expressing opinions that are fueled by your need to be right. This is the real challenge with the 17, is your need to be right can get in there and can distort your ability to express what it is that's coming through. And I like this idea of anticipation, that we're in this place and we're seeing, okay, what's coming through, we're paying attention, right? We're bringing it in. But notice that this is very far away from any of the motors in the chart. So it's a projected energy. So there's not a lot of energy to do something with it. Whereas the 3 is on the sacral, right? And the sacral is primary life force energy. It is the most powerful engine in the chart. So there's a lot of energy to get things happening with that. Whereas the 17 is kind of floating up here in the ajna, and you want to notice right here, if Mars and Saturn are here, you want to pay attention to kind of the quality of your voice when you're expressing, because that 17 can give it an edge, right? Because if we think about how we've all been programmed, right? We've been programmed to assert our opinions, to position ourselves as an expert, to cut people off if we think they're not saying the right thing, to dominate conversation, all this kind of stuff, right? We've really been taught to do that. So we are evolving out of it, but that is something that is, inside most of us. And so you want to watch for that edge, because of course, if Mars is there, that's going to be, right? It can have that aggressive tone. So that's the other thing. And then Saturn, in a positive way, can start to bring in new forms for you to be able to express what it is that you're anticipating, right? So Saturn can be beneficial here. Mars can be beneficial in the sense of elevating us out of opinions and that power over when Mars is in his spiritual warrior aspect. So whenever we have two planets or more planets in a gate, it's exponentially stronger than when we just have one there. So we've got both Neptune and Mercury in the 25, and then we've got Saturn and Mars in the 17, all in Aries. We want to be watching for how that energy is playing out. And then when we bring in the asteroids, Chiron is also in the gate 3. You can see it through this image here. They're all piled up in the gate 3. So what does that tell us about the gate 3? What does that tell us about the sun and the moon being in the gate 3? Well, Chiron is the wounded healer. Right? Chiron points to what haven't you healed yet? What trauma imprints are still active in your life, still potentially orchestrating your experience from deep inside your psyche, right? That you're not even aware of. They're below the level of your consciousness. And Chiron helps bring those up to the surface and says, hey, take a look here. Take a look here. This is something that needs to be healed. This is happening for a lot of us. I know it's been happening for me a lot. I've had a lot of different kinds of trauma imprints come up from my deep substructure, ways that I have just kind of been tied to the past, tethered to the past through things that haven't healed until now. And so you have an incredible opportunity here for things that you know about that you're like, I haven't quite healed that yet. That one is still really tricky for me. And also you can ask Chiron to show you things and to help you to heal things that you're not already aware of as well. And here you're going to have the sun and the moon that are going to be there as well and say, this is a good time to get started with that. This is a really good time for you to be paying attention to it. And you could look in particular about how have you been wounded about bringing new things out into the world, innovating new possibilities. Were you shut down as a younger person when you had ideas that didn't fit in and other people were like, oh, no, that's not going to matter, right? Is that what was your experience like? It was for many, many people, right? We were taught to conform. We were taught to fit in. But this is completely 180 degrees opposite of that, right? It's like, what is it that you have to bring through? Heal whatever trauma you have around that, and then plant a new seed on this new moon, and then bring forth that which is within you, that which you are intuiting, that is coming in through that knowing circuit, and giving energy and voice to that which you want to innovate. So two other heavenly bodies, which are not on the human design chart because they don't run those, are Eris and Salacia. So Eris is Mars' sister, actually, and she is known as the goddess of chaos because she just really didn't like being left out of a party. And so she created some havoc to kind of get back at the people who didn't invite her. The underlying meaning of Eris is really everyone needs to be invited to the party. Everybody's voice matters. No more of this hierarchical stuff, right? Everybody matters. There should be equanimity. There should be equality. Everyone is included and everyone is invited to the party. And she's pretty intense about it. You know what I mean? She's like, no more putting up with the ways that you have been left out of things. You've been rejected. You've been pushed away. No more of that. And she's in the gate of starting things. Interesting. So what is it that you want to start that maybe you've been thinking about starting, but you haven't started because you feel like you're going to be rejected or it's not going to fit in. Other people aren't going to like it, right? Eris is like, do it anyway. Go for it. Your voice matters. So take a hold of that for yourself. See what you can do with it. And then finally, we have Salacia in the gate 21, which traditionally is known as the gate of control in traditional human design. and has been renamed management or self-management in quantum human design. I like to call it stewardship. It's my sun gate. My conscious sun is in the gate 21. And I feel like it is about managing resources. And who is better to handle resources than a steward? And this, I think, is what we're really being called into as sovereign beings. The second half of my book is all about stepping into ourselves as sovereign stewards, really. How do we become stewards of our earth? How do we help heal our earth? How do we help heal our relationships with each other? How do we steward our resources so that there is enough for everyone? So that the earth can really thrive, the people can thrive, the children can thrive, all of that. So stewardship is about really making sure, in my view, that everyone has what they need. It doesn't mean that everyone has the same thing, because not everybody needs the same thing, but that there is this sense of care and that everyone is accounted for, and that you may not get every single thing that you want all the time, but you will get what you need. And Salacia is lighting that up. So Salacia is the wife of Neptune, and she just really has this beautiful divine feminine energy, this beautiful infinite love energy, this sense of the great unknown, which is of the unified field, really this possibility of really understanding that we are all part of creation, that we are each expressions of this great creative force, right? And so it helps us to remember that. And as we do that, it means stewardship becomes kind of just natural, the natural next step, when we realize how connected we actually really all are, and that we are in the challenges of our lives together. We're living here on this planet together, and that what happens to one of us impacts everyone else. Human design really shows us as well, that we can then become beautiful stewards of our planet, and we can help our planet to heal, we can help our people to heal, and we can come into right relationship really with spirit. Remembering all of these heavenly bodies are in Aries, so all of the gates that I just talked about are in Aries, and so they all have this kind of primal, cardinal fire energy, right? It's a lot of energy, and when you add those all up, I was listening to Pam Gregory, she's one of my favorite astrologers. I highly recommend you go check her out if you don't already follow her, and she was saying, she's like, it's like a tsunami of energy. Which, it is. When you look at it, it's just like, wow, so much. And then, of course, we're also in the year of the fire horse. So intense energy. I hope that you are making sure that you're grounding, right? Getting your bare feet on the earth if it's not too cold where you are, that you're spending time outside, you're allowing yourself to be nourished by the living world, that you're really eating the food that's right for you. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're lightening up because we're heading into summer. That you're drinking really good water, and that your heart is open, and that it is kind, and that it is really oriented towards making sure that everything that you do is coming from a heart-centered place. This is one of the most important things that every single one of us can do, is to keep checking, am I coming from a heart-centered place? I know that it's really easy right now to get pulled into outrage, to get pulled into anger, to get pulled into despair, to fear, all of that, right? As I said earlier, the outer forces are trying to manipulate you into all of those emotions, because when you're in those really intense emotional states, you're easier to control. You're easier to manipulate. You're easier to influence because your frontal lobe has kind of gone offline and you're not able to see things clearly. So this is why we want to keep cultivating a calm, neutral state inside of us, where we can then start to really feel and live from the love that is the core energy in each and every one of us. It's just that we forgot, and that we have too many layers of other stuff on top of it. But that really is who we are. And when you can even just intend it and do the best to act from it, it will become more and more real in your life. It doesn't cost you anything except your attention, to pay attention to how you're showing up, what you're saying, what your energy is like, and how is it going out into the world, right? Take a hold of this powerful Aries energy and use it for your own evolution, for your own maturation, for your own ability to step out of that hierarchical power over legacy of empire that we are evolving out of right now, and to step into a whole new state of sovereignty. I think a wonderful phrase that I have been saying to myself often during the day, especially when I wake up and before I go to bed, which is, like spirit is, spirit is all, and sovereign, I am, sovereign, I am, sovereign, I am. So I encourage you to use that if that is beneficial for you, because the more that you recognize how sovereign you are and that you have command over your multidimensional self, your whole experience of outer reality will change, because it will morph around a new configuration of your own energy field. And the more aligned you are, the easier everything is going to become. So I hope this was beneficial to you in some way. I do have something wonderful coming for you a little bit later in April, so probably in my next video I'll share that with you. So stay tuned. In the meantime, many, many blessings, my friend. Much love.